The aroma of cinnamon and cloves hung heavy in my kitchen, a stark contrast to the hollowness in my chest. Christmas morning. The oven timer dinged, a lonely sound in the quiet house, and I pulled out the gingerbread men, their ice smiles mocking my own strained expression. My phone buzzed on the countertop. "So sorry, Mom." The text from Caleb read, "Danica's got a migraine, and Julian's car is acting up. We won't make it today." A wave of disappointment, familiar and yet still sharp, washed over me. "Oh, well," I murmured to myself, "Merry Christmas to me then." I'd spent the last week preparing for their visit, baking their favorite treats, wrapping presents, decorating the tree with the ornaments Danica made as a child. I'd even gone to the trouble of preparing a special Christmas roast, Caleb's favorite. Maybe later. I typed back, my fingers lingering on the send button. I deleted it and retyped, "Hope Danica feels better. Merry Christmas." The turkey sizzled in the oven, the tantalizing aroma cruel reminder of the empty chairs at my dining table. I reached for my favorite mug, the one Danica had painted for me years ago with a lopsided heart, and the words "Best Mom Ever." The irony wasn't lost on me. I sat by the window, sipping my tea, watching the snow fall softly outside. The scene, picture perfect in its wintry beauty, felt utterly disconnected from the chill in my heart. Christmases past flashed before my eyes. Caleb and Danica, their faces lit with excitement, tearing open presents beneath the twinkling lights of the tree. Those memories, once a source of comfort, now felt like a bittersweet ache. Another Christmas alone. I sighed. My phone buzzed again. It was a picture message from Danica. A gleaming, brand-new Tesla Model Y, adorned with a giant red bow. "Merry Christmas, Mom." The caption read. Julian surprised me. My brow furrowed. A Tesla. Julian was still finishing his degree and working part-time at the coffee shop. How could he afford a car like that? I scrolled through a few more pictures, Danica beaming, Julian grinning from ear to ear, both of them posing beside their extravagant new toy. Something about the photos felt off, a nagging feeling I couldn't quite place. I set down my teacup, the porcelain clinking against the saucer, the sound unusually loud in the quiet house. I picked up my phone again, scrolling back through Danica's messages. There it was, a casual mention from a few weeks ago. Julian's looking into a new car. He needs something reliable for his commute. I'd offered my old sedan, perfectly functional though not flashy, but Danica had dismissed it. "Thanks, Mom, but Julian has his heart set on a Tesla." A chill ran down my spine. The Model Y in the pictures, the casual mention of needing a new carrot all clicked into place with a sickening thud. I remembered the paperwork Caleb had asked me to sign a few months ago, some investment opportunity he'd been vague about. He'd been so insistent, so charming, so pushy. I'd trusted him, of course. He was my son. I rummaged through my desk drawer, pulling out the file of documents I'd signed without fully understanding. My hand trembled as I unfolded the topmost paper. The words swam before my eyes. Auto loan agreement, Tesla Model Y cosigner. Amber, my last name. My breath hitched. My signature, stark black ink against the white paper, stared back at me. It wasn't my signature. It was close, a clever forgery, but not mine. The world tilted on its axis. My own son, my Caleb, had forged my signature on a car loan for a Tesla he couldn't afford. And Danica, my sweet Danica, had been complicit. They'd used me, taken advantage of my trust, and then dismissed my Christmas invitation with a casual text message because they were too busy celebrating their ill-gotten gains. The gingerbread men in the oven suddenly seemed to sneer at me, their sugary smiles a grotesque parody of festive cheer. The smell of the roasting turkey turned my stomach. I rose from my chair, a strange calmness settling over me. The hurt, the betrayal, it was all still there, a dull ache beneath my ribs. But something else had taken root, something cold and hard and resolute. I went to the kitchen, pulled the turkey from the oven, and dumped it in the trash. The gingerbread men followed, their cheerful faces smashed against the garbage bag. I went to my computer, logged into my social media accounts, and deleted them one by one. I erased my online presence, severing the digital threads that connected me to Caleb and Danica. They wouldn't find me there, not anymore. I walked to the bedroom, pulled out a suitcase, and began to pack. The snow continued to fall outside, blanketing the world in a pristine white silence. I didn't know where I was going, not yet, but I knew one thing for sure. I wouldn't be spending another Christmas, or any other day, being taken advantage of. This was a new beginning, and they wouldn't be a part of it. The faint chime of a notification broke the silence. I picked up my phone, my heart pounding a strange, unfamiliar rhythm. It was a text from Caleb. "Mom, call me back ASAP. There's a problem with the Tesla paperwork." I stared at the message, a ghost of a smile playing on my lips. The game, I realized, had just begun. The crisp white envelope lay on my kitchen table, an unwelcome guest amidst the scattered crossword puzzles and half-finished mug of tea. I picked it up, my fingers tracing the embossed logo of the car dealership. Another ad. I muttered to myself, already reaching for the recycling bin. But something stopped me. A small, typed label bore my name and address, not the usual generic marketing spiel. Curiosity piqued. I sliced open the envelope with a butter knife. Inside, nestled amongst glossy brochures showcasing gleaming new vehicles, was an invoice. My heart thudded against my ribs. This wasn't an advertisement. This was a car loan agreement. And my name, in stark black ink, was listed as a co-signer. Caleb wouldn't, I whispered, my voice catching in my throat. He knew I'd never co-sign a loan, not after the last time he'd gotten himself into financial trouble. He'd promised, sworn he'd learned his lesson. He wouldn't, I repeated, but the words felt hollow, the conviction draining away with each passing second. The invoice detailed the purchase. A Tesla Model Y, no less. A brand new top-of-the-line electric car. My Caleb, driving a Tesla. I shook my head, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. He's got more nerve than I gave him credit for. I grabbed the phone, my hand trembling as I dialed his number. It went straight to voicemail. "Caleb, it's your mother. Call me back. It's important." My voice was tight, strained with an emotion I couldn't quite name yet. It was a mixture of disbelief, anger, and a deep, gnawing disappointment. I left the phone on the table, my gaze fixed on the invoice. The signature next to my name, a clumsy imitation of my own handwriting, mocked me. It wasn't just the audacity of the purchase. the blatant disregard for my financial security. It was the lie, the betrayal of trust that cut the deepest. The phone remained silent. Minutes stretched into an hour, the silence amplifying the turmoil inside me. I paced the kitchen, the invoice clutched in my hand, the glossy brochures scattered on the table like fallen leaves. Finally, the phone buzzed. It was a text message from Danica. "Mom, so sorry, can't talk right now. Caleb's driving, and we're headed out of town for the weekend. Big surprise for you, talk soon." A surprise. Yes, I suppose it was. A surprise of epic proportions. The text confirmed what the invoice had already hinted at. They'd done it. They'd forged my signature, saddled me with a debt I hadn't agreed to, and then skipped town, leaving me to deal with the fallout. My stomach churned, the half-finished tea suddenly turning sour in my mouth. A big surprise, indeed, I muttered, my voice laced with a bitterness I hadn't known I possessed. The image of Caleb, behind the wheel of a Tesla he couldn't afford, financed by a loan he'd fraudulently obtained using my name, seared itself into my mind. And Danica, blissfully unaware or perhaps complicit in the deception, texting me about a surprise. The audacity, the sheer, unadulterated audacity. I sat back down at the kitchen table, the anger slowly giving way to a cold, quiet resolve. This wasn't just about the money. It was about respect, about boundaries, about the fundamental principles of family. They had crossed a line I had drawn in the sand years ago, after the last incident. I had forgiven them then, given them another chance. But this time, this was different. I picked up the phone again, this time scrolling through my contacts until I found the number for my financial advisor. "Hello, David. It's Amber. I need to speak to you. It's about my son, Caleb, and a rather unexpected car loan." My voice was steady now, the trembling gone, replaced by a steeliness I hadn't known existed within me. As I explained the situation to David, outlining the details of the forged signature and the unauthorized loan, a plan began to form in my mind. A plan that didn't involve confrontation or accusations or tearful pleas for understanding. This time, I would do things differently. After the call with David, I spent the rest of the evening reviewing my finances, meticulously going through every statement, every account. I had worked hard for everything I had, and I wasn't about to let Caleb and Danica squander it. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years. The anger had dissipated, replaced by a strange calm, a quiet understanding that things needed to change. I started with my social media. I deactivated my Facebook account, deleted my Instagram profile, and scrubbed my online presence clean. Then I called my bank, changed my phone number, and updated my address with the post office. I packed a small bag, just the essentials, and booked a flight to a small, secluded island in the Caribbean, a place I'd always dreamed of visiting. As I closed the front door of my house, a small smile played on my lips. They would be back soon, expecting to flaunt their new car, to bask in their ill-gotten gains. But they wouldn't find me, and they certainly wouldn't find the grandmother they thought they knew. This time, I was taking back control. This time, the surprise would be on them. Rain lashed against the kitchen window, blurring the already gray afternoon. I stared at the lone document, the stark black ink of my forged signature swimming before my eyes. My hand trembled as I reached for my reading glasses, perched precariously on the edge of the table. "This can't be real," I whispered, the words catching in my throat. I adjusted the glasses, rereading the document, line by excruciating line. It was real. A loan for a Tesla Model Y, a car I'd never even sat in, let alone driven. A Tesla, I muttered, the absurdity of it hitting me with full force. My son, Caleb, and his wife, Danica, had somehow secured a loan in my name, using my signature. My own son, my own daughter-in-law. I pushed the papers away, the glossy surface slick against my fingertips. A wave of nausea washed over me, the kitchen suddenly too warm, too small. I stumbled to the window, pushing it open to let in the cool, damp air. The rain splattered against my face, a welcome distraction from the burning in my eyes. "How could they?" I asked the empty room, my voice barely above a whisper. The wind howled in response, an echoing emptiness that mirrored the hollow ache in my chest. I closed the window, the latch clicking shut with a finality that resonated within me. I walked back to the table, the lone document a stark white rectangle against the dark wood. I picked it up again, my fingers tracing the forged signature. It was a crude imitation, a childish scrawl that bore no resemblance to my own careful script. "They didn't even try," I said, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. It wasn't just the financial betrayal, it was the sheer audacity of it, the blatant disrespect. They hadn't even bothered to forge my signature convincingly. They thought I wouldn't notice. They thought I was too old, too naive, too disposable. I sat down heavily, the chair creaking beneath my weight. I remembered Danica's offhand comment last Christmas, when they hadn't visited, claiming they were too busy with Julian, her fiance's family. "We'll see you soon, Mom," Danica had chirped over the phone, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Caleb sends his love." They hadn't seen me since. Not a phone call, not a visit, just a dismissive text message on Christmas Day. Now this. I picked up my phone, the cool metal a comfort against my trembling hand. I scrolled through my contacts, pausing at Caleb's name. My finger hovered over the call button, the urge to confront him, to scream and rage, almost overwhelming. But I stopped. What good would it do? They had already shown me who they were. Their actions spoke louder than any apology they could offer. I placed the phone back on the table, the silence in the room heavy and oppressive. The rain continued to fall, the rhythmic drumming against the window pane a relentless reminder of my solitude. I thought back to all the times I had helped Caleb and Danica, the money I had given them, the sacrifices I had made. "Foolish," I murmured, the word a bitter taste on my tongue. I had been so eager to please them, so desperate to maintain a close relationship, that I had blinded myself to their true nature. I stood up, the chair scraping against the floor, the sound sharp and jarring in the quiet kitchen. I walked to the window again, watching the rain cascade down the glass. The world outside seemed blurry, distorted, as if seen through a watery lens. I felt a strange sense of detachment, a disconnect from the life I had known. It was as if a part of me had died, a part that had clung to the illusion of a loving family. But in the midst of the pain, a new feeling began to emerge, a quiet resolve, a steely determination. I wouldn't let them break me. I wouldn't let them steal my dignity, my peace of mind. I wouldn't confront them. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing my pain, my anger. I would do something far more effective, something that would expose their deceit and leave them to face the consequences of their actions. I turned away from the window, the rain still falling, a steady, cleansing rhythm. I walked back to the table, picked up the loan document, and folded it carefully. I placed it in a drawer, tucking it away like a secret weapon. I knew what I had to do. It wouldn't be easy, but I would reclaim my life, my independence, my peace, and they wouldn't even see it coming. The faintest hint of a smile touched my lips. It was time for a change. It was time for a new beginning, and it would start with a simple act of disappearing. The phone felt cold against my ear. I'd rehearsed this call a dozen times, the Tesla dealership's number memorized like a prayer. Each ring hammered in my chest, a dull echo of the hollowness that had settled in my gut. Thank you for calling Tesla of Sunnyvale. This is Patricia. How may I direct your call? A chirpy voice, oblivious to the turmoil brewing on my end. Yes. Hello, Patricia, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I'm calling about a recent Model Y purchase, under the name Caleb. There was a pause, the tap, tap, tap of keys on the other end. And your name, ma'am? Patricia asked. Amber. I replied, my voice catching slightly. Caleb's mother. Another pause, slightly longer this time. One moment, please. I held my breath, the silence stretching, filled only with the muted hum of the refrigerator in my otherwise quiet kitchen. The house seemed to hold its breath with me, waiting for the confirmation of what I already knew. Okay, I have the file here. A Model Y blue purchased just last week. Congratulations. Patricia's voice was bright, almost jarringly so. I swallowed, the lump in my throat refusing to budge. Patricia, I began. I'm calling because I didn't authorize this purchase. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. I am not sure I understand, ma'am. The loan documents are signed. Everything seems to be in order. That's precisely the problem, I said, my voice now edged with steel. The signature on those documents, it's not mine. The cheerful facade on the other end crumbled. You're saying someone forged your signature? Patricia's voice was barely a whisper. Yes, I confirmed, the word heavy with the weight of betrayal. I need to see those documents. I need proof. Patricia stammered something about needing to speak with her manager. I listened patiently. The phone pressed so tightly to my ear that it was beginning to ache. The muffled sounds of conversation drifted from the other end, punctuated by hushed whispers and the rustle of papers. Finally, Patricia came back on the line, her voice strained. Ma'am, we can certainly arrange for you to view the documents. Can you come in tomorrow morning? Yes, I said, a cold certainty settling over me. First thing, I hung up the phone, the dial tone a hollow echo of the emptiness inside me. I walked to the kitchen window, staring out at the bare branches of the oak tree in my yard, its skeletal silhouette mirroring the way I felt. Stripped bare, exposed. My own son, Caleb, and his wife, Danica, had forged my signature on a Tesla loan. A Tesla, a luxury car they couldn't afford, bought on my back with my name. I closed my eyes, picturing Danica's perfectly manicured nails, her designer handbag, her constant stream of social media posts showcasing their seemingly perfect life, a life built on lies, built on my unwitting sacrifice. The anger began to simmer, a low burn replacing the initial shock. They thought they could get away with it. They thought I was oblivious, a naive old woman they could manipulate at will. They thought I was blind to their casual disregard, their constant requests for loans that were never repaid, the way they treated my home like their personal ATM. They thought wrong. I opened my eyes, the bare branches of the tree no longer looking barren, but strong, resilient, unbending. I thought of the Christmas card I had received just a few weeks ago, a hastily scribbled note claiming they were too busy to visit. Too busy, no doubt, enjoying their new Tesla. Too busy to spend time with the woman who had always been there for them. A strange calmness washed over me, a quiet resolve replacing the anger. This wasn't just about the car. It was about years of subtle manipulation, of being taken for granted, of having my generosity exploited. It was about the slow, insidious erosion of my trust, of my own sense of self-worth. This was about reclaiming my life, reclaiming my dignity. I wouldn't confront them, not yet. Not with accusations and angry words that would only be met with denial and deflection. No, this required a different approach, a more subtle one. I walked to my desk, opened my laptop, and stared at the screen. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all the platforms where Danica meticulously curated their perfect image. The image they so desperately wanted to project to the world. I clicked the deactivate button on each account, one after the other. A small smile played on my lips. This was just the beginning. They had underestimated me. They had no idea what was coming. They had built their castle of lies on a foundation of sand, and I, the unwitting architect of their deception, was about to watch it crumble. The trip to the dealership tomorrow would be more than just about verifying a signature. It would be about gathering evidence, evidence that would expose their carefully constructed facade and bring their world crashing down around them. They wanted a Tesla. They could have it, along with all the consequences that came with it. I closed my laptop, the silence in the house now filled with a sense of anticipation. The oak tree outside swayed gently in the breeze, its branches no longer bare, but laden with the promise of a coming storm. Rain lashed against my window, mirroring the storm brewing inside me. My phone buzzed, a text from Caleb. "Mom, so sorry, something came up. Can't make it for Christmas." Disappointment twisted in my gut. This was the third year in a row. Then another text, this time a picture. Danica, beaming, perched on the hood of a gleaming red Tesla. "Look what Julian got me for Christmas." The caption read. My heart skipped a beat. A Tesla? Where did they get that kind of money? A strange unease settled over me. Something felt off. I called Caleb. "Honey, that's a beautiful car. Where did you get the money for that?" I asked, trying to keep my voice even. He chuckled. "Oh, we've been saving." His tone was dismissive, almost condescending. "Saving," I echoed, my voice rising slightly. "For a Tesla, in this economy." He sighed, a sound laced with impatience. "Mom, it's fine. We handled it. Don't worry about it." "Handled it," I repeated slowly, the words catching in my throat. The way he'd said it, it pricked at my suspicion. "Caleb," I said firmly, "I want you to tell me exactly how you handled it." A long silence stretched between us, broken only by the drumming of the rain. Finally, he muttered, "Look, I gotta go. We're celebrating. Talk later." The line went dead. I stared at the phone, my hand trembling. The image of Danica on that Tesla, the casual dismissal in Caleb's voice, it all added up to a sickening feeling in the pit of my stomach. Something was definitely wrong. I paced my living room, the rain outside a relentless soundtrack to my growing anxiety. I needed answers. My mind raced, replaying every conversation, every interaction with Caleb and Danica over the past few months. Then, I remembered something. A few weeks ago, Caleb had asked me to sign some papers, claiming they were for a small loan he was taking out for a business venture. I'd trusted him, hadn't even bothered to read the fine print. Now, a cold dread washed over me. I scrambled through my desk drawer, frantically searching for the documents. My fingers closed around a familiar manila envelope. With trembling hands, I pulled out the papers and scanned them. The words blurred before my eyes. Then I saw it. A loan agreement. For a Tesla. My signature, bold and clear, at the bottom. Only it wasn't my signature. It was a forgery. A near-perfect replica, but a forgery nonetheless. The room spun. I clutched the desk, my knuckles white. My own son, my own daughter-in-law. They had forged my signature. They had used me. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow, knocking the breath from my lungs. I sank into my chair, the papers slipping from my numb fingers, the rain outside now mournful dirge. The phone buzzed again. Another text from Danica. "Mom, hope you're having a Merry Christmas. Julian and I are taking the Tesla for a spin up the coast. Catch you later." I stared at the message, a strange calmness settling over me. The anger, the hurt, it was still there, a burning ember beneath the surface. But alongside it, something else was growing, a resolve, a quiet, steely determination. I picked up the phone, opened my contacts, and scrolled to Caleb's name. My thumb hovered over the delete button. Then I scrolled to Danica's name, did the same. One by one, I deleted their numbers, their names vanishing from my phone like ghosts. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. This was just the beginning. I opened my laptop, the glow of the screen reflecting in my tear-filled eyes. My fingers moved almost mechanically, navigating to my social media accounts, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. One by one, I deactivated them all, my digital presence erased. I closed the laptop, the silence in the room now heavy with unspoken intentions. I knew they'd panic. They'd call. They'd text. They'd try to reach me, desperate to explain, to justify their actions. But I wouldn't answer. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. Let them wonder. Let them stew in their own deceit. Let them face the consequences of their actions, alone. The rain continued to fall, washing away the residue of their betrayal. A small, almost imperceptible smile touched my lips. I had nothing left to lose, and in that emptiness, I found a strange sense of freedom, a sense of power. This Christmas, I wasn't getting them anything. They, on the other hand, had unwittingly given me the greatest gift of all, the opportunity to start over, the chance to build a new life, free from their manipulation and lies. And as the first rays of dawn broke through the storm clouds, I knew exactly where to begin. Rain lashed against the window, mirroring the storm brewing inside me. I sipped my tea, the warmth doing little to thaw the icy knot in my stomach. My phone buzzed, a notification from Facebook. Normally, I'd ignore it, but something compelled me to look. It was Danica, a picture of her beaming, draped over a gleaming new Tesla Model Y, the oversized red bow practically screaming extravagance. The caption read, "Biggest Christmas surprise ever. Thanks Mom and Dad for the best gift. We love you so much." My teacup rattled in its saucer. "Thanks Mom and Dad," I muttered to myself, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. She actually posted it. My son, Caleb, hadn't contributed a dime. This was entirely my burden, a debt fraudulently placed on my shoulders. Their audacity was breathtaking. They'd not only forged my signature on a loan for a luxury car they couldn't afford, but they were now publicly thanking me for it, broadcasting their lie to the world. I scrolled through the comments, a sickening mix of congratulations and envy. "Wow, lucky you," one read. Another chimed in, "Your parents are the best." The irony was a sharp, twisting knife. My own daughter-in-law parading a stolen gift, showered with praise for my supposed generosity. Julian even added his own comment. "Couldn't ask for better in-laws," he wrote, tagging Caleb. The screen blurred as my eyes welled up, but the tears weren't of sadness. Not anymore. They were of a cold, hard fury. I closed my laptop, the snap of the lid echoing the finality of my decision. This charade was over. They wanted to play this game, fine. Let's play. I opened my laptop again, navigating to my Facebook profile. I deleted the app from my phone. Then, taking a deep breath, I clicked deactivate. A warning popped up, a list of consequences, the pleas to reconsider. I ignored them all. Next, Instagram, gone. Twitter, deleted. Every trace of my online presence, erased. I vanished from the digital world as if I'd never existed. Let them wonder. Let them explain. The silence that followed was almost deafening. No more incessant notifications. No more curated glimpses into lives that weren't truly theirs. It was unsettling, yet liberating. I felt a strange sense of calm settle over me, a quiet anticipation. The phone rang, jarring me from my thoughts. It was an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. "Hello, Mom, it's Danica. What's going on? People are saying they can't find you on Facebook. Did you delete your account?" Her voice was laced with a nervous energy I hadn't heard before. "I did," I replied, my voice even and steady. "But why?" she stammered. "Julian's family is asking. They saw the post about the car, I repeated, letting the words hang in the air. "Yes, everyone's so excited for us, but they're asking about you. They want to congratulate you too." I closed my eyes, picturing Danica's forced smile, the carefully crafted image she presented to the world. "Let them," I said softly. "Let them what?" Her confusion was palpable. "Let them wonder," I repeated, a hint of steel creeping into my voice. "Let them ask Caleb where the money came from. Let them ask him about the car." Silence. Then, A sharp intake of breath. Mom, what are you talking about? I hung up. Let the whispers begin. Let the questions rise. Let them unravel their own web of lies. I picked up my tea, now cold, and poured it down the sink. The storm outside had subsided, leaving a stillness in its wake. The quiet before the storm, I thought. The real storm. Rain lashed against my window, a fitting backdrop to the storm brewing inside me. My phone buzzed incessantly, a chorus of notifications I initially ignored. Each ping was another reminder of the charade I was orchestrating, the web of manufactured generosity I'd spun. Just checking in, Mom. The Tesla is amazing. Thanks again. Danica's text message flashed across the screen, followed by a photo of her and Julian grinning from inside the gleaming white car. My stomach churned. It wasn't my generosity they were praising. It was their own carefully constructed lie, a lie built on my forged signature and their insatiable greed. I finally picked up the phone, scrolling through the messages. You're the best, Amber. This trip wouldn't be possible without you, seriously. You're too kind. We're having the time of our lives. Each message was a knife twist, a reminder of how thoroughly they'd used me. Mom, you there? Just wanted to say thanks again for the amazing Christmas gift. We're in Aspen now. The snow is incredible. Danica's voice, bubbly and bright, grated on my ears. I forced a chuckle. Glad you're enjoying it, sweetheart. The snow does look beautiful. My voice was steady, betraying none of the turmoil within. It is. We're just about to hit the slopes. Wish you were here. Oh, you know me and skiing. I replied, my voice laced with a gentle, practiced weariness. Have fun. You too. Send pictures. I hung up, the silence of the house pressing in. The messages continued to pour in. Friends, family, even distant acquaintances were singing my praises. Amber, you're so generous. That Tesla is a dream. Danica and Julian are so lucky to have you. You're an inspiration. Each message was a brick in the wall I was building, a wall between me and the life I'd once known. A life where my own children saw me as a bottomless well of resources, rather than the person, the mother, I actually was. I closed my eyes, picturing them, blissfully unaware of the storm gathering on the horizon. They were living the high life on my dime, basking in the admiration of others for a generosity that wasn't mine to give. The charade was working perfectly. I had meticulously crafted the narrative, feeding it to their friends and family through carefully curated messages and strategically timed gifts. I'd even created a fake email account to confirm the Tesla purchase with Danica and Julian, ensuring the lie spread like wildfire. Amber, you're an angel. That down payment on the condo were changing their lives. My cousin Martha's message popped up. The condo, another lie, another piece of the puzzle. I hadn't given them a cent towards a condo. That was their fabrication. Another layer of deception built on the foundation of the Tesla lie. I'd simply liked a post Danica made about looking at properties, planting the seed that would blossom into their elaborate story. It was exhausting, this performance, but it was necessary. They needed to understand the consequences of their actions. They needed to feel the weight of their lies, the sting of public disapproval. They needed to learn that their entitlement wouldn't always be rewarded. The phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from my financial advisor. Just confirming, Amber. You're happy with the transfer of assets to the offshore account. Very happy. I typed back, a small smile playing on my lips. This was the real key to my plan, the quiet move that would secure my future, far from their grasping hands. The assets, the true measure of my financial security, were safely tucked away, beyond their reach. They were celebrating a phantom generosity, while the real wealth, the legacy I'd built, was now mine alone. The rain continued to fall, washing away the remnants of my old life, the life where I was a silent, enabling prop in their narrative. Now, I was writing my own story, a story of quiet strength, calculated moves, and a future free from the burden of their insatiable desires. I glanced at the calendar. Christmas was just around the corner. I wondered what sort of gift Danica and Julian would concoct this year. I wondered how they'd react when they realized the well had finally run dry. I wondered how they'd explain the missing Tesla payments, the vanished condo down payment, the sudden absence of their generous, ever-giving mother. I closed my eyes, the image of their confused, panicked faces a balm to my weary soul. The game was afoot, and I, for the first time in a long time, felt a sense of peace. The phone rang, jarring me from the quiet of my afternoon. It was Collie, my oldest friend. "Amber, darling, are you all right?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. "I've been trying to reach you for days. Your social media is gone. Your number is unlisted. What in the world is going on?" I hesitated, then took a deep breath. "Collie, there are some things I haven't told anyone," I confessed, my voice trembling slightly. "Things about Caleb and Danica." There was a pause on the other end, then a soft, "Oh, honey." I explained everything to Collie, starting with the Christmas text, the casual dismissal of our holiday tradition, the gnawing feeling that something was amiss. They said they were spending Christmas with Julian's family, I told her, my voice tight with remembered hurt, that it was too much trouble to come to me this year. Collie made a sympathetic noise. "That's awful, Amber. But why disappear completely?" Then I told her about the Tesla, a brand new Model Y, I explained, the words still bitter on my tongue, parked right in their driveway. And then the loan documents arrived, with my signature, a forgery. Silence hung heavy between us. "Oh my God, Amber," Collie finally whispered. "That is unbelievable." "I know," I replied, my voice hollow. I felt so violated, like they thought they could just take what they wanted from me, without a second thought. I explained how I'd contacted the bank, reported the forgery, and initiated the fraud investigation. "They'll be facing some serious consequences," I said, a flicker of satisfaction in my voice. Then I told her about my plan, about wiping my digital presence clean, about changing my number, about quietly extracting myself from their lives. "I'm not going to fight with them, Collie," I said firmly. "I'm not going to give them the satisfaction. I'm just walking away." Another long pause. "Then, Amber," Collie said slowly, "this is intense, almost brilliant. They're so wrapped up in their little world, they won't even notice you're gone until it's too late." She chuckled, a low, admiring sound. "They'll be expecting their usual handouts, their Christmas gifts, their free meals. What will they do when they realize the well has run dry?" I smiled grimly. "They'll find out soon enough," I said, and I won't be there to see it." We talked for a while longer, Collie expressing a mixture of shock and awe at my actions. "I never would have thought you had it in you," she admitted, her voice tinged with amusement. "But honestly, I admire it. They deserve everything that's coming to them." I agreed. It was a strange feeling, this quiet sense of power. For so long, I had felt like a victim, controlled and manipulated by Caleb and Danica's endless demands. Now, for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was back in the driver's seat. "So, what are you going to do now?" Collie asked. With the holidays coming up and all, I paused, considering. "I'm not sure yet," I admitted, "but I have some ideas." I pictured a quiet Christmas, just me and a good book. Maybe a warm fire crackling in the hearth. No forced smiles, no fake cheer, no resentful glances across the dinner table. Just peace. And then another thought flickered through my mind. A thought about a little seaside cottage I'd always admired. The one with the wraparound porch and the stunning ocean views. Maybe, just maybe, this Christmas could be different. Really different. "Well, whatever you decide," Collie said, her voice warm with affection. "I'm here for you. And honestly, Amber, I can't wait to hear what happens next." We said our goodbyes, and I hung up the phone, a small smile playing on my lips. Collie was right. This was just the beginning, the first step in a new chapter. A chapter where I was finally free. And as I looked out the window at the setting sun, I knew with a deep and unshakable certainty that Caleb and Danica were about to learn a very valuable lesson about taking advantage of their mother. They thought they had won. They thought they had gotten away with it. But they had no idea what was coming. They had no idea what I had planned. And that, more than anything, filled me with a profound and quiet sense of satisfaction. The game, after all, had just begun. The late evening sun cast long shadows across my living room carpet. I sat by the window, phone in hand, the cool glass a comfort against my cheek. Deleting my social media accounts felt strangely final, like closing a door on a life I no longer recognized. First, Facebook. The familiar blue and white interface seemed almost mocking now. "Goodbye, Shrade," I whispered, tapping the deactivate button. A small pang of something regret, perhaps, flickered in my chest, but it was quickly extinguished by a stronger emotion, relief. I navigated to Instagram next. The vibrant photos of smiling faces, exotic vacations, and perfectly plated meals suddenly feeling alien. Danica's posts were especially jarring. Just last week, she'd uploaded a picture of herself posing by a sparkling new Tesla Model Y, captioning it "Living the Dream." "Thanks, Mom and Dad." My stomach clenched. "Your dream, sweetheart," I muttered, my thumb hovering over the delete button. "Not mine." With a decisive tap, the account vanished. Twitter followed suit. Then Pinterest, LinkedIn, each deletion a small act of defiance, a reclaiming of my own narrative. The silence that followed was profound. No more pings, no more notifications, no more curated glimpses into the lives of others. It was just me, the setting sun, and the quiet hum of the refrigerator. For the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. It wasn't happiness, not yet, but it was a start, a beginning. I walked over to the fireplace, picked up a framed photo of Danica and me, taken years ago on her graduation day. She was beaming, her arm wrapped tightly round mine. "I always wanted the best for you," I said softly, my voice catching in my throat. But somewhere along the way, we lost our path. I placed the photo face down on the mantelpiece. It wasn't an act of anger, but of preservation. I needed to protect that memory, that pure, untainted love, from the bitterness that had seeped into our relationship. I moved to the kitchen, the rhythmic chopping of vegetables a soothing counterpoint to the turmoil in my mind. I was making a simple vegetable soup, a comforting ritual in times of stress. As the aroma of onions and carrots filled the air, my thoughts drifted back to Christmas. Danica and Julian had promised to visit, but at the last minute, they'd sent a breezy text message saying they were spending the holiday with Julian's family. "So sorry, Mom. Next year for sure," the message had chirped. I'd spent that Christmas alone, staring at an empty table, a lump of unsent holiday cheer lodged in my throat. Now, I realized that empty table had been a gift, a stark revelation of the emptiness that had crept into my relationship with my son and his wife. They hadn't just missed Christmas, they'd missed the point entirely. The phone rang, jarring me from my thoughts. It was Caleb. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the accept button. Part of me wanted to answer, to hear his voice, to pretend that everything was normal. But the stronger part of me, the part that had been slowly awakening over the past few weeks, held back. I let it go to voicemail. A few seconds later, a text message popped up. "Mom, Danica and I are really worried about you. You haven't been answering our calls or responding to our messages. Is everything okay?" I stared at the words, a wry smile playing on my lips. Worried? Now they were worried. I typed a short reply. "I'm fine. Just taking some time for myself." It wasn't the whole truth, but it was enough. For now. Later that evening, as I sat on the porch swing, watching the fireflies dance in the twilight, another text message arrived. This one was from Danica. "Mom, please call us. Something's wrong with the Tesla. The dealership says the loan hasn't been paid. We don't understand. Did you forget to make a payment?" My fingers tightened on the phone. This was it, the moment of truth. I took a deep breath and typed a reply that I knew would change everything. "Danica, I haven't made any payments on a Tesla. I didn't even know you had one until I saw your Instagram post. In fact, I haven't co-signed any loan agreements for you or Caleb. Perhaps you should check the paperwork again." I pressed send, then closed my eyes, the cool night air a balm on my skin. The fireflies continued their silent ballet, their tiny lights flickering like sparks of hope in the darkness. I didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of anticipation, a quiet thrill of knowing that I was finally in control of my own destiny. The silence that followed was no longer empty, but full of promise. It was the silence of a new beginning, a clean slate, a life reclaimed. The chirping of crickets filled the air, a soothing soundtrack to my newfound freedom. I had no idea what the fallout would be, but in that moment, under the vast expanse of the night sky, I knew I had done the right thing. The weight of their deception, the burden of their entitlement, had finally been lifted, and as I swung gently back and forth, I felt a faint smile touch my lips. The game, I realized, had just begun. Sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. I sipped my tea, the warmth spreading through me, a comforting contrast to the chill that had settled in my bones these past few months. It was a quiet morning, the kind I used to dread. The silence used to scream with their absence, with the echoes of Danica's shrill laughter and Caleb's boisterous greetings. "Mom, you wouldn't believe the traffic," Danica would announce, sweeping in like a whirlwind. "Julian had to practically drive on the sidewalk to get here," Caleb would add, shaking his head dramatically. "They drive, all smiles and apologies for being late, their arms conspicuously empty, their promises of gifts forgotten in the rush of their own busy lives. This Christmas, however, the silence was a balm. I glanced at the calendar, a small smile playing on my lips. Christmas had come and gone. No frantic calls, no last-minute requests for a little help with their holiday expenses. Just blessed quiet. The Tesla loan documents lay on the table, a stark reminder of their betrayal. I ran my fingers over the forged signature, a chilling replica of my own handwriting. It was a masterpiece of deception, a testament to how well they knew me, how easily they'd exploited my trust. "We just need a little help, Mom," Caleb had pleaded, his eyes wide and earnest. "Just a signature, a formality," Danica had chimed in. "It's our dream car, Mom. Imagine all the road trips we can take together." Road trips they hadn't even visited for Christmas. The memory of their dismissive text message, claiming a sudden family emergency that prevented them from coming, still stung. "So sorry, Mom. Family emergency. Rain check on Christmas." It was the final straw. The moment the scales fell from my eyes, I saw them for who they truly were, not the loving children I'd raised, but opportunists who saw me as a bottomless well of resources. "Don't worry, sweetie," I'd replied, my fingers already deleting my social media accounts, severing the digital tether that bound me to their manufactured reality. "Enjoy your holidays. I'd spent years enabling their behavior, bailing them out of financial scrapes, turning a blind eye to their increasingly extravagant lifestyle. I'd justified it as a mother's love, a desire to see her children happy. But their happiness had come at my expense, a slow drain on my resources, my energy, my very spirit. "It's just a little help, Mom," Caleb's words echoed in my mind. A little help that had escalated into forged signatures and mountains of debt. I'd always believed that family came first, that blood was thicker than water, but I'd finally realized that sometimes the deepest cuts come from those closest to you. I stood up and walked over to the window, gazing out at the snow-covered landscape. The world outside seemed fresh and clean, a stark contrast to the tangled web of lies and deceit I'd been living in. The crisp winter air filled my lungs, a symbol of the newfound freedom I felt. The silence was no longer oppressive, but liberating. I was free from their demands, their manipulations, their endless need. The phone rang, shattering the quiet. I hesitated, a flicker of anxiety rising within me. It could be them, full of apologies and excuses, ready to spin another tale of woe, another desperate plea for just a little help. But I didn't answer. I let it ring. the sound fading into the stillness, another echo in the empty house. This house, which I had once thought would be filled with the laughter of grandchildren, the warmth of family gatherings, was now just mine, and in its quiet emptiness, I found a sense of peace I hadn't known I was missing. The Tesla, I knew, was now their problem. The loan, their burden. The consequences of their actions, finally their own. The sun continued its slow ascent, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold. I took another sip of my tea, the warmth spreading through me like a promise of a new beginning, a life free from the weight of their expectations, a life where my silence was not a sign of weakness, but a declaration of strength, a life, finally, my own.